Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Well, what a pleasure it is to have the one and only Tom Siegert, aka the Suburban Footballer. I'm Comedy Legends with Bevo.
It's good to be back. There's an old saying in the comedy industry, you always do Legends with Bevo twice in your career. On your way up, and on your way down, and it's good to be back. I tell you what, it's we're just saying a fairly dated picture there. You nearly update the old scalp on that one.
I'm going to take it while I can, mate.
Leave it as long as you can.
I might maybe it's a shout out to Mosh or something like that, or one of the other hair pilot or something, perhaps help us both out. Or
I've got some on beyond repair. I've got some really old. The comedy industry's famous for having really old promo shots that just float around for years, and quite often, because they just Google them. You've got a gig coming up and the venue or the footy club will just Google a picture of you and you'll see the poster. You're like, I've got hair and like it just look $1 million. And then you turn up and they're like, jeepers, you've dated a bit since a photo. And it's always embarrassing. But you're looking good.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'll take it while I can. Hey, before we start this episode as well, Tommy, a big shout out to Pete Oldfield and the Southern Slugs. They're sponsoring this episode and they do a wonderful job. They've got a big footy carnival that's happening over there in Bali. We spoke about this off air as well before. Over 35s, over 45s, over 55s. So jump on the Southern Slugs football Facebook page, find out more about that and get involved. There's some real greats involved as well. Ricky Olorenshaw lives in Bali. Spoke to him last year and he's pumped about it. Richard Champion as well, former Brisbane Lions player, of course, is involved. So there's lots of great players and us over 35s, be a lot of fun, I reckon.
I've got a good mate over in WA. He goes over there every year for that competition and absolutely loves it. And he said, I think there's a big night before the grand final, and quite often, I think they made it to the granny one year, all went out and then just got flogged in the granny because I think staying off the booze is a big part of your success over there if you can manage to do that, because it's a bit tempting.
Especially how warm it is as well in Bali.
But it'd be decent standard actually.
Yeah,
some good players getting around.
Would you get into it one day yourself?
We'll see. I'd love to, but yeah, just time these days to get away. But I'd love to.
You're still in good shape, mate. So
yes, as I've said before, don't mistake skinny for healthy. That's
No, we better get to yourself, obviously, here for the Adelaide Fringe, which is wonderful. And the Suburban Footballer we'll talk about a little bit later on, which is over 86,000 followers going absolutely gangbusters. But you're here as well as Tom Siegert, the man himself. Tell us about what people can look forward to if they come along to your show, Tommy.
Yeah, so I'd never done the Adelaide Fringe before. I've been over and seen some shows, and it's just an amazing festival. So I thought I'd come over and do sort of a half. So you get 50 minutes for your show. Yeah, so I'm doing half myself, which is straight stand-up that I've been doing for 20 years, and then a real condensed version, 25-minute version of the Suburban Footballer. So all the all killer, no filler, as they say in the industry. So so hopefully it's the best of both worlds, and hopefully can get some people along. But I'm looking forward to it.
20 plus years you've been involved in the stand-up comedy side of things.
Yep.
What's been some of the ups and downs during that time, mate?
My last 5 years or so, I've really accepted my little what I'm doing, which has got rid of the downs, because what do they say? Comparison is the ingredient for unhappiness or something, and it's an industry where it's so easy to compare. Like something good might be happening and then you'll look slightly above you and think, geez, I wish I was doing that. I wish I'd have got that gig. I wish I'd have got that spot on TV. And about 5 years ago, I just stopped worrying about my own game, and just been quite happy and looked back to when I got up and did my first gig. And if you had told me that I'd be, earning a living off doing stand-up, I would have taken it any day of the week. So I don't think there's as many downs these days. There's always bad gigs. Always bad gigs. I mean, if you want me to talk about bad gigs, crikey, how much
time
you got?
By all means, feel free to share. We love hearing about those sort of
things. I wouldn't know. When I think of a bad gig, I think of there's one that just absolutely stands out. So FHM Funniest Man competition. Did we talk about this last time I was on? So it was this competition. I'd been doing stand-up comedy for probably 3 or 4 years. Remember the old FHM magazine?
Got it. I was a weekly subscriber to it, mate. I loved it.
It was, you could not go around to boys share house without there being a stack 15 high on the on the table. Like they were huge. Anyway, they ran a competition called FHM's Funniest Man, and they had a couple of competitions, elimination in each state. Got 2 representatives from each state, and flew us all to Sydney, and we met in the grand final. A very young Hamish and Andy were hosting it. It was a full house at the Comedy Store. So, you know, a few hundred people there. We got 5 minutes. We got a little light went off at 4.5, and a light came on at 4.5 and stayed on, and your mic went out at 5. So it was cutthroat. And everyone's spot went on a DVD. DVD went out with the next episode, the next month's FHM. Everyone at home watched it and then voted on who they thought the winner was. So it was huge. Every young bloke in Australia was going to see this. Anyway, I got up there, did my first joke, nailed it. Big laugh. And then I thought I'm away here. Got halfway through the second joke, and it was like the Men in Black had held that little thing up and clicked it, and my everything in my brain was just erased. And I just, for what seemed like an eternity, just stood on stage, and all the cameras were on me. I could see the crowd sort of going, oh, what's happening here? And then I thought to myself, well, I'm running out of time. I've got to skip that joke and go to my third joke. I told the punchline of the third joke without the lead up. And I thought, I'm a mess here. And I was just fumbling and falling apart at the seams. And then I finally got one joke out at the end. The crowd laughed out of, I think, just relief that I'd finally said something. I reckon it was as hard for them as it was for me. Anyway, so it was 2 months until this DVD came out. Worst 2 months of my life. I thought, this is the end of me. Every bloke in Australia is going to see this. Anyway, and I knew it was coming out this day. It got to the day, and my mate Troy Kinney, who was the other representative from Victoria, rang me up and he said, Tom, I don't know what's happened. This is the bit, mate. Get down, get the DVD. You're going to love it. And I got on and I chucked the DVD in, and they'd edited it. They edited the DVD. And so it goes, I tell my first joke and I look clean as a whistle. How you going? Cut to the crowd. Comes back to me. I look like I've been in a headlock for half an hour. I look disheveled. I'm sweating. I've got massive armpit sweats. My shirt's all over the joint. And I tell one joke. And so my set only goes for about 2 minutes when everyone else goes for 5. And I got away with it. But that is something I still think about. And every gig since that day, so for 15 years, I've written one joke on my hand in case ever the mind goes blank again. I look, do that joke, and I'm away. I've never had to use it, but it's now I have to write something on my hand because I do not want to go through that again.
Can the people that are watching or listening to this episode, can they watch your absolute disaster? Or
for all the stuff I've done, like been on the Footy Show, and I've done all this other stuff, people still pull me up and go, mate, we sat around, we love that DVD.
That's awesome, mate. And let's go back to the start again. Gig number 1, where was it? How'd you go?
How'd it go? So it was part of what a lot of people start off doing. It's raw comedy competition the Melbourne International Comedy Festival runs. Again, you get 5 minutes. Same thing, mic goes off at 5. It's a common thing for when you're starting out. A lot of comedians get their friends along, which just blows my mind that someone could have the confidence to want people to be there for their first gig. So I was living in a share house at the time, grew up in the country, living in Melbourne with 3 mates. I told them all I had a girlfriend, and which gave me a reason to have a shower, put on some deodorant, chuck a nice shirt on and head out with no questions asked. And they were like, when are we going to meet her? And I was sneaking off and had this little open mic comedy career I was kicking off because I just did not want anyone knowing. So I got up and look, I thought it went all right. I didn't make it through the heat, but I would have been doing it for 6 months before a few mates finally got wind of it and started, you'd look at the back and that you'd see them there. And but it was I started at a good time when there weren't many people starting out, but now, again, social media, podcasts, so many people see stand-up as an avenue to something else. Like the gigs, if you were starting out now, it'd be an absolute nightmare. You go they get 30 people turn up to an open mic night and they draw out of a hat to do 3 minutes of stand-up comedy on a Tuesday night, and you're hanging around all night to do 3 minutes. Where we used to get gigs because there weren't many of us doing it. We just turn up and you get a bit of stage time. So, and you can't get good without stage time. So it'd be hard, Jacker, now.
And when did you first start getting that passion? And was there someone in the family or a friend that influenced you to get into it, or someone you saw on TV?
No, I hand on heart, I grew up sports crazy, and I did not know what stand-up comedy was. I had no idea. And I was on a date. I was single at the time. I was on a date with this girl. Our first date, we were sitting out the front of the Espy in St Kilda, having a couple of beers out the front. She was a great ripping girl, and this lady was going around handing out flyers for a comedy night in the Gershwin room. Anyway, it was $10, and we said, let's do it. So we went out to the Gershwin room, and I saw a guy called Greg Fleet, and still to this day, I've never laughed so hard in my life. It was like I could not believe that I was watching someone on stage just with a mic making 200 people laugh. And I was falling off my chair. And this girl, Michaela was her name, she said, she just looked at me and she said, you want to do that, don't you? And I said, I'd love to, but where would you start? And from that day, it took me probably a year and a half to get the balls to do it. But that's from that moment, I've wanted to do it. And once I did my first gig, I said I'd do it 10 times and then make my decision if I wanted to keep doing it. 30 seconds into my first gig, first laugh, I was like, nah, this is for me. Yeah. So.
And 20 plus years later, and you're still doing it now.
still loving it, still passionate. You have your. Like, I've probably been pretty lucky. I certainly haven't had a big break where I've gone nuts. It has been a very, very gradual improvement of popularity, and I guess of quality. And yeah, so I think I've slowly been heading in the right direction. It's been good. It's been good.
And in terms of material, like obviously speaking to different comedians the last 12 months, Tom, and just sort of hearing they have different ways of approaching things. Someone like to hear loves like the audience interaction and that sort of thing.
Yep.
With your own shows, people that come along to see you, do you like getting the audience involved? This is not Suburban Footballer, this is as Tom Siegert. Or do you sort of go in being quite prepared and have a material ready to go? How does it all work for you?
I know what my first 5 minutes is going to be. Like every Saturday night I do a 45-minute spot at a footy club as myself, and then have a break and then come back and do 45 as a Suburban Footballer. And that 45, the first half when I'm myself, I've got first 5 minutes planned. And then my next 5 minutes is where I try some new stuff. And then I've got a few jokes with questions, like where I tell a joke about a dog. But first I can go around and go, how you going, mate? You got a dog? You know, and I try and write questions where, you know, who's the most likely here to get blackout drunk? If I've because I've got a question about getting blackout drunk and why you only do good things and you don't wake up and you've, mowed the lawns and had the tax returns and stuff like that. And it's great if you've got a question, because then if it goes nowhere, you're straight into the joke. But sometimes, you might get 10 minutes out of it. And sometimes it's so good that you don't even do the joke because the joke's going to be a letdown because the crowd works so good. So I try, it is crowd work, but there's a little bit of preparation. There's a plan to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Suburban Footballer story itself, tell us, where it all came about and how you've now gone absolutely gangbusters to have over 86,000 followers.
Yeah, so grew up playing footy, so it's not fake. Yeah, played my first game when I was 8. I'm 45. I played my last game last year, played every game the season before. So footy nut. I'd play, if I wasn't married with kids, I'd play till I was 70. So I seriously would. I just love it. And the comedy is obviously the passion. And people say, geez, you've done well to connect the two. But I was stupid for it to take 15 years for me to connect the two. Like it should have been day one. But it had always been a goal to write a show about footy. And I was confident I could write a good show about footy, but I wasn't confident I could get anyone to see it and to come and see it. And that's where the Facebook idea came in. So I was going to build this page. My goal was to get 5,000 followers. And then I advertise on that page. So that's 5,000 people that hopefully like footy, hopefully like a laugh, and advertise on that. They come to see my show. That was the goal. And I remember it clearly. It was Easter Monday, probably 6 years ago, and I was trying to build this Facebook page. I was on about 2,500 followers, and I was up on the roof cleaning out the gutter, and I had a bit of a hangover, and I did a post about, this isn't exactly how it went, but every year I do the whole pre-season to get as fit as I possibly can. Then I get to Easter, then I go on a 3-day bender over Easter and completely cock the entire pre-season up. And it must have just hit at this point where there must have been every local footballer in Australia was sitting at home on the couch feeling like hell. They'd done the pre-season and they had the first game next week because the first game straight after Easter. And it was just, and everyone was tagging, like, and then, how are you feeling? And my wife, she was popping her head up going, Tom, they're on. You should come down. It's up to 13,000 likes. And Tom, it's up to 15,000 followers and 20,000. So that was the day it just hit and went crazy. And I've spent a couple of grand and weeks writing sketches before that haven't hit anything like this thing. But yeah, it's just that was the day it sort of took off. And then, it was meant to be just for the comedy festival, Perth Fringe, and then Melbourne Comedy Festival. But every show sold out, and I was up there. I'd look into the crowd, and I'd see Warwick Capper and Mark Williams. And my very first show in Adelaide, in Perth, the front row was nearly the entire West Coast team was the front 2 rows. I was like, oh my God, and everyone was coming up saying, "Oh, we've got to get you to the club." And so, but it's evolved. I've made it shorter. Yeah, so it's just gone nuts, and I'm completely booked out for this year. People want to book in for next year, but I can't. I haven't even got next year's diary yet. So yeah, I'm very lucky the way it's worked out. I don't know how long it's going to last, but yeah, it just keeps evolving. Whenever maybe there's a dip, I go and do something like I reviewed local showers, and that's gone crazy. So everyone sends me photos of their footy club showers and I review them. And so so there's always different things. And I guess you just got to keep evolving is the key. But I'm only really on Facebook. So that could be the death of me that I haven't evolved.
No TikTok or anything like that. No.
TikTok is miles away. But Instagram is what I've got to try and do, but I just time. I've got 3 kids. It's tough. But I know it's tough because I feel like I'm wasting time on social media, on your phone, but it's not. It's the new, popping a full page ad in the Herald Sun. So it's
it's a new thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not really new, but so I have to treat it like a job. Yeah,
I see what you're saying. It can be like really hard work at times, and you spend hours trying to come up with good text for the post and what to do, and you just have to do it. And like I'm exactly the same. Thought about, I have had a break off social media for 12 months, a few years back, and I didn't actually miss it too much. But then having a podcast, you've got to have social media.
You have to.
Same as you as a comedian.
And it's it's that little. You're doing something for work. You're doing something for work. Whoever's running Facebook they know what they're doing. Yeah, and then before you know it, what am I doing? I'm watching a video of some kid throwing a bucket on some muscle man's head. Like, what am I doing here? This is absolute time wasting. It's that if you could stop it and keep it at work, but that's what's so addictive, I guess.
You've got a great story to tell us about being on the AFL Footy Show, one of my favourite shows back in the days. A lot of people's favourite show as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So like everyone, I grew up watching the Footy Show. It wasn't quite the the huge show when I was on it. I actually, when I was originally on it, I wrote for Trev Marmalade. Wrote a lot of his stuff. I used to work 2 days a week, which I just loved. I loved Trev, and then I went back a second time when they sort of reinvented themselves, and they gave me little segments during the show, and it was going really well. And then one day, before the show started, so off air, I used to come out my Suburban Footballer gear and get the 300 live audience to stand up, and I used to pump them up, and it was unreal. Like I had the crowd going off, but it wasn't on air. It was, and I used to do some nicknames. I used to tell them all some nicknames, and everyone was in stitches. It was perfect. All of a sudden, I think it was round 4 or 5, got called to Eddie Maguire's office. And I'm a Pies man. I love Eddie. He cops a lot of slack, but mate, I couldn't have a bad word to say about him. But this wasn't great. So he's called me and he said, Tommy, this is your big break. This week's episode, right off the bat, when everyone's watching, you're going to give us your 10 best nicknames straight down the camera. You're going to be a household name. And I was like, Eddie, I'm not going to do it. And he goes, sorry? And I said, mate, in my first episode, I did a lot of jokes I do in my Suburban Footballer live show. And then I did my Suburban Footballer live show the next week, and those jokes didn't get laughs. My nicknames is probably the most popular part of my live show. I'm not destroying that for a minute of live television. I just can't. I can't do it. Like, it's my livelihood. I can't do it. And he said, no, mate, you got to do it. I said, I can't do it. It'll kill my live show, which is where I make my money. I'm not making money here. It's great for my profile, but I can't do it. And he goes, mate, what's wrong with you comedians? You know, you go see AC/DC, and imagine if you went and saw AC/DC and they didn't play Thunderstruck because they thought everyone had heard it. You know, they didn't want everyone to hear it twice. And I'm like, mate, it's completely different. You hear Thunderstruck 5 times and it's still great. You still sing along to it. You know what I mean? Like you hear a joke twice and you've heard it. And he goes, oh, mate, what's wrong with you? And his head was red. He was like he was about to blow a gasket. He was fuming. And half of me's going, oh, no, I'm here getting told off by Eddie. And the other half's going, how cool is this? I'm having an argument with Eddie Maguire at Channel 9 Studios. Like, this is one of the best things that's happened in my life. And anyway, so he's, get out of here. And I get in the car the next day, driving to work, turn on Triple M. Eddie's going to Will Anderson. Will, what is it with you bloody comedians? You know, you don't want to burn your stuff. And Will was going, oh, Eddie, he was on my side. Anyway, so I wrote this big letter. It was really awkward. And I wrote this letter to Channel 9, or to Eddie and Channel 9, saying, look, this isn't really, the show was in free fall anyway. Ratings were appalling. And I said, look, mate, let's just cut our losses. If I come up with a good idea, I'll let you know. And if you want to run with it. So they said, all right. So they let me go. I wasn't contracted anyway. They let me go. I came back and did 2 special things throughout the year, which went really well. And I always wondered, I wonder if he holds a grudge. And anyway, I got to the grand final footy show. A mate was over from WA and he wanted to get some tickets to that big grand final live show. And he rang me, he goes, mate, do you reckon you can get some tickets? And I said, I'll see how it goes. And so I rang my mate that still worked at the footy show. And I said, do you reckon you could get us some tickets? It's all sold out. And he goes, oh, mate, your name's still on the employment board and everyone on the employment board gets 4 free tickets I'll just grab your tickets. And I go, oh, mate, that'd be awesome. And he goes, yeah, I'll grab them. I'll drop them off tonight. And he hung up, rang back 10 minutes later and goes, oh, sorry, mate. Eddie's put a big black line through your name on the board, so you don't get your tickets. I was like, but I've never crossed paths since. I'd love to and see what he thought, but that's how into stuff he is. Like, why would you? Yeah, I mean, wow. Oh, he was so passionate. But mate, I love the guy. He's impressive. But yeah, I don't think he'd be that impressed with me. He just thought I was.
Don't rub him the wrong way. So,
yeah. Well, I don't think he hears no very, very often. Yeah, but it was half a thrill, half absolutely terrifying. But it was So that's my story there. But
what a great way to finish off, Tommy. And once again, Tom Siegert, you're here for the Adelaide Fringe, doing your stand-up as well as doing doing the Suburban Footballer. It's going to be a great show. Can't wait to check it out myself.
Yeah,
one more time, give it a plug yourself.
Yeah. So at the Laugh Lounge. Yeah, tonight's Wednesday. I don't even know what the date is. Yeah, Wednesday until Sunday, 7:20. Go to the website of the Adelaide Fringe and get some tickets.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks so much. Great to have you on the studio.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.